2 years ago on our show, we featured my home garden, and I showed you some of my native plants and some of the things I was doing here. Well, I thought it was time for an update to show you some of the other things I've added and some of the things that I'm currently working on. Like most of you, my garden is a work in progress, and it seems to never be done, but that's part of the fun of gardening, always getting to work on your garden and creating the type of place that you've always dreamed of working in. Well, here in this part of my garden, I call this the fenced garden. I've got a chicken wire fence around here to keep out the armadillos and a few of the other critters, rabbits and things like that. But it's primarily just a collection of unique plants that I've collected over the years. And just want to show you a few of those as we start out here, like this rose. This is, of course, not a rare rose, but a fairly new rose. It's sort of taking the country by storm right now. This is the knockout rose, and it is one that I absolutely love. The plant has good disease resistance, doesn't get much black spot or powdery mildew. The flowers are just outstanding. They are produced almost continuously. You can see all the flowers on the plants on this plant right now, and then we've got lots of buds that are coming along as well. The foliage of the plant when it's first emerging is sort of this beautiful purple type color or wine red type color. This is the original knockout. There is also a pink knockout rose and a blush knockout. Right down here is one called Valentine. Not a knockout rose, but a shrub rose that's very floriferous. It will get larger than this, but another rose that I've had good success with over the years. One other rose I want to show you right back here. It's quite unique. This one's called Margo Koster. It's a polyantha, but it's a very small polyantha, almost like a miniature polyantha, but unique in the small stature. This is a plant that Loretta Aaron gave me about 4 years ago, and I cut it back a little bit, but it doesn't grow very fast at all. The thing I like most about Margo Koster is the color. The flowers are interestingly shaped, and the color, that unique salmony peachy color on the Margo Koster rose. Got an interesting plant right here that sort of reseeds itself around the garden. This is a pincushion type plant. This is Knautia, and the particular mix I got was called Melton Pastels. Easy plant to get established from seed in your garden. It's a fairly short-lived perennial. Each plant lives about 2 or 3 years. Well, a couple weeks ago on our program, we were at Ann Barrow's home and we were looking at iris. We primarily talked about the tall bearded iris or some of the other bearded iris. Well, right now we have a Siberian iris in bloom. These bloom a little bit later, but I really like the Siberian iris because they produce just a multitude of flowers in a single clump here. And once those flowers are gone, you can cut away those seed heads if you don't want the seed heads around. And the foliage is very attractive. You can see it's very narrow, so it looks like an ornamental grass after all the flowers are gone. Another neat thing about the Siberian iris is that they can handle a little bit more moisture, so they're a little bit better suited to a garden that you're going to be irrigating a little bit more through the year. This particular Siberian iris is known as Erick the Red. Doesn't really have any red in the flower, but that's its name. Makes a great companion with the Worcester Gold Caryopteris right there. Well, right back here, you can see a little bit of the work I've done on this pathway leading back to my greenhouse. We put down fabric and put down about 4 inches of limestone screenings. I like this as a pathway material because the rock is very tiny. It has little fines or the dust particles in it, and once we get some rain and some traffic on this, it really compacts and sets up really well. On the side of this little barn, I constructed a little trellis made out of some of the old fence posts that were on the property, and we just attached wire with some eye bolts and put this wire on here, tightened it up a little bit with a few turnbuckles just so it wouldn't sag so much, and we'll grow several vines in this area. Then we also have a number of small plants along the base of the vines. I was able to get a hold of some old concrete fence posts to create sort of an edging for the garden. I love using recycled materials in the garden. Right back here I've got a very special bench. This is a bench that our volunteers gave to me and some of the other staff members of Oklahoma Gardening a couple years ago. But it's a wonderfully made bench, and it's constructed entirely out of treated 2x4s. Very neat pattern, very structurally sound garden bench. Really enjoy this out in the garden. Right over here I've got a fountain butterfly bush, a little bit different than your typical butterfly bush. Has very nice sweet fragrance. The flowering panicles are produced all along the branches, and as this gets older it's going to weep a little bit more. And you can see I've got a little bit of work I need to do in the garden here. I need to stake this up so it looks more like a small tree. If this were to grow in its own natural shape or form, it would be a large shrub. I actually have to prune it to train it as a standard or a small tree. And in that process I have to continually come back and remove any suckers that sprout here at the base. So we keep those pinched away periodically because we want to keep this single trunk. And even along the trunk here you can see I've got a little bit of sprouting, but I also periodically come back and remove any of that green growth as well. Keep that clean and just keep all the growth occurring up here at the top. Well, right here you can see how I've pruned my Vitex or chaste tree. This is a plant that flowers in the summertime. You can cut it back all the way to the ground, but for several years I've just been taking it back to about this height. Kind of gives it a little bit more character, and it's a good way to keep those larger shrubs at a smaller size. Well, back here I want to show you the little gateway arch that I put together to enter this fenced garden. And again, my love of recycled materials and just some of the different materials that were on the site or on this farm when we bought it 5 years ago, I was able to gather those and build some things for the garden. So everything that went into this structure was here on the site, and kind of adds a special touch to the garden. But these are just some old large fence posts and then some smaller treated fence posts that have weathered quite a bit. Put this little arch together with some of this wood, and this will eventually have vines climbing on it. I've got some wire here attached with some weatherproof screws to help those vines crawl up around this structure. In the front here I just put some flat stepping stones, sort of just little entrance into this garden. And the plant material that I put between the rocks is one of our native sedges. This is one of our native Carex species plants, and these came from another area here on our property. I was putting in a pathway, and instead of spraying them and killing them or digging them up, I got good root balls on them and just transplanted them over here to put between the rocks. It's a good tough plant that should be able to handle quite a bit of foot traffic. Well, now I'd like to show you a few of my native plants. When we were talking about my native plant collection on our program 2 years ago, we were primarily featuring the penstemons that I have in the collection. Well, the penstemons right now are not quite ready to flower yet. A lot of them are still in bud, except for some of the white flowering species like Oklahomensis and Laxiflora. So I thought I would show you some of the other native plants in the collection. Right back here, giving us a great display right now, is this golden false indigo. This plant has been here over 5 years and is making a tremendous display right now with all those little yellow flowers. We see this plant down in the southeastern part of Oklahoma. Right back here we've got the poppy mallow. It's a plant in the hibiscus family. It's got these beautiful purplish red flowers. This is called poppy mallow, sometimes goes by the name of wine cup. sometimes goes by the name of cowboy rose, but it grows from a large tap root and it spreads out a good 8 feet in this garden, so it can cover quite an area like a ground cover. If it's not watered in the summertime, it'll actually go dormant, but if you irrigate the plant, it will stay green and give you a few flowers throughout the year. Right down here we've got an interesting small plant. This is known as blue-eyed grass. It's a neat little plant in the iris family. We sometimes see these in pastures and in our lawns occasionally, but looks like a grass, and then the tips of the blades here elongate and we get these little blue iris-like flowers. Great little plant. This one will go dormant in the summer as well if it's not watered. Well, right over here you can see some plants that have sort of some yellow foliage. This is a little annual plant. It's known as Blue-Eyed Mary, and I let it go to seed after it blooms. That way I can have more plants coming up next year. So it may look a little bit untidy for just a little while, but we have to do that to let it set seed. If you want to see what the flowers look like on the Blue-Eyed Mary, there are these purple blooms right here. This is a plant in the snapdragon family, Blue-Eyed Mary or Collinsia. We've got lots of Prairie Larkspur in the native collection. We've got a great specimen right here. You can see these spires of blooms. The prairie species here is white. It's got sort of a chocolatey brown color, and I'll just kind of pull one off here to let you see it a little bit more up close. The botanical name is Delphinium carolinianum, and the word delphinium means dolphin. I don't think the flower looks much like a dolphin, but it is interesting, and you can see the spur on the larkspur, this pointed end in the back. Now over in the eastern part of the state we have some larkspurs that have a beautiful blue color. We've got just a few of those scattered through the garden, and it's interesting how they will cross-pollinate with each other, and we can get some pale blue or light lavender colored larkspurs as well. Right over here there's a plant like the poppy mallow that is in the hibiscus family. That's the globe mallow, a little western Oklahoma species with a bright orange flower. Looks like a little hibiscus flower. Attractive flowers, and also the foliage has an attractive silvery color. Now if we put this in a well-watered, well-amended bed, it would probably spread too much because it does kind of creep around by underground stolons or rhizomes. The native bed here gets very little moisture throughout the year. I'll occasionally water it a little bit if I want a good show. If I've got some folks coming out to look at the garden, I'll give it a little bit of water to get a little bit more flower production, but otherwise I don't have to do any watering of this bed throughout the year. I try to give the plants what they would get out in nature. Now I also want to point out that it's not a good idea to go out in the wild and dig up our wildflowers and plant them in the garden. It's best to order them from specialty nurseries or native plant nurseries, or to try to start them from seed in your garden. Another reason we don't want to dig up native plants from the wild is because the plants we're selecting may be endangered species, and we don't want to limit their presence in our state. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this tour of my garden. I'll be back sometime in the future to give you another update.